This is Larry Sager with ESQ, and you are listening to Rock at Night.
Yeah, are you ready? Hey, tonight I'm gonna take you on a little trip. We're going down south by the mighty Mississippi. I'm gonna take you to a place where lights never dim. Bring your mother, your brother, and your best friend. I'm gonna show you where they dance out in the street. They'll tell you all about your body heat. I'm not gonna talk about it, just gonna do it. Get on down if you feel good. Get on down.
This is Charisse with Rock at Night magazine. Today we are speaking with Larry Sager of ESQ. He has an EP out called At Night, and Rock at Night has reviewed some of the singles. So we want to find out more about ESQ and who Larry is. Hi, Larry.
How you doing? Thank you again for having me.
All right. I love the fact that you're proud of your Detroit roots.
Well, everyone's from Detroit.
Well, I am.
Well, like I said, everyone's from Detroit.
Yeah.
So what can you say? I was playing in this bar in the Bay Area one night, years and years ago, and a guy comes up to me and says, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Detroit." He says, "Oh, do you know Mike from Detroit?" I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, there's only millions of people there. You're proud of your roots, and I know you mentioned that a lot in your music. Did you go out to California when you were a teenager? When did you go out to California?
Well, I went to California when I was 18, actually, and I'd been playing music in the Detroit area, and at that time, a lot of the big names were moving to Detroit, from Detroit to LA. Yeah, and when I first got to San Francisco, I started playing with this band, and I wasn't 21 in Detroit at the time. I think the age was 18. So I went to California, was 21. So I'm playing with this band. I'm frightened like anything if someone's going to like check my ID and kick me out.
Here in Florida, it was 18 too, and then they raised it to 19 and then 21. So you went out to California, and did anybody ever say anything, or did they find out that you were underage?
No, it never was an issue. But I would, we would show up, the band would show up at a gig, and we'd go in, and I'd have my guitar, and I'm just with the band. No one ever said anything. In those days, the ancient days, they had people at the door checking IDs. That I mean, I don't think that exists anymore, where there's somebody else. Well, I guess it's in some places. But so I would go in the bar, and I didn't leave until 2:30, when we're packing up and leaving. I was just worried something might happen, and then they're short a musician.
What kind of music were you playing in those days?
I was playing rock, I was playing jazz, blues, commercial stuff.
Yeah, I saw you have kind of a background in jazz, yet your new music is straight up rock and roll.
Absolutely.
Is that what you prefer to record, or why rock?
Yeah, that is, I don't know, back to my roots or something. Growing up, it was rock and roll and blues. And at some point before I left Detroit, rock and roll and blues became like a bad word, and I started playing jazz, and jazz people didn't lower themselves to play rock and roll music. And I came out to California, and I was still playing some jazz, but I played with a folk rock band. I played with a country band a few times, but I was mostly into the jazz. I'm into even like the avant-garde stuff, and played it for years and years. And at some point, I guess I decided that jazz was really boring. And I went back to rock music, although there was another there was an epiphany I had, when I was in my 20s. I had a buddy of mine who I grew up down the street from in Detroit, who had moved to LA. and he was working with a guy named Donald Baldwin, who wrote some Temptation hits and did a bunch of their tracks and everything. And he said, "Well, Donald's looking, for a bass player and a guitar player, and he's doing, commercial music." And I thought, well, all right, I guess I can give that a swing. It's way below my pay grade, but I'll go and check it out. And sitting with him and going through his tunes, I don't know, at that time I developed an appreciation of someone who can put together a pop song or a rock song or an R&B song, and that it's not so easy, and it's not garbage or junk either, which is taboo to some of the jazz people I played with. But so yeah, I went in a circle.
It's funny about jazz people, especially like you said, fusion. They're kind of snooty and uppity from what I've gathered. Whereas
Yeah.
it seems rock and roll, I associate it more with common people and blue collar, really, which is fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my favorite music back at the time was rock, jazz, fusion stuff.
Mhm.
But it has a basis in rock, and I mean, if you start looking at people like Jeff Beck and John McLaughlin, and even Miles Davis, I mean, he's got rock people playing with him, especially on the guitar, and I mean, and they're rocking out.
I was really broken up when I heard Jeff Beck passed. I mean, I've always loved him. Back to Detroit. I listened to a lot of your songs, and I definitely get Detroit vibes. Like At Night, I was picking up Glenn Frey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. At Night to me sounded very almost kind of rock Motownish. I love the fact that you have backup singers, and you have like a really full sound with your music. I guess, does that go back to your probably childhood hearing the Motown music?
Yeah, and at this point too, I mean, I guess I consider it a characteristic of what I'm doing actually, is taken what I call R&B. I mean, your Aretha Franklin, Chaka Khan. I don't know. I guess maybe there's the Supremes or something. I mean, that kind of that background vocal thing going. So yeah, I mean, my influences were funk music from Detroit. I mean, that was really my favorite music. Like James Brown. I'm trying to think of somebody else, but I don't put anyone else in his camp really. And to me, he's
Temptation.
you got the Temptations, the
Yeah.
Supremes, and all those folks like that, and Stevie Wonder even. But to me, James Brown was like the pinnacle. I mean, that was what was happening, and from Detroit there was
Smokey Robinson. I just saw a documentary recently called Hitsville, and it was all about the history of Motown. They talked about Marvin Gaye. It was Berry Gordy was the one who basically they featured. Have you seen that, Hitsville?
No, I haven't seen that.
You need to. It's really good. It talks all about the roots. And have you been to the Motown Museum by chance?
No, I haven't. I've been to the Jimi Hendrix Museum.
Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty good too, I'm sure. Well, when you go back to Detroit, that I hadn't seen it before, and I finally took the time to go, and I thought, well, what have I been waiting for? It's really worth going to.
Where
The
is it located?
Motown Museum. It's Hitsville, USA. They have the studio, the original house where Berry Gordy made all the Motown music.
Oh yeah.
And you can see all sorts of memorabilia. It's really nice. So if you ever get a chance.
Yeah, and Donald. I mean, Donald wrote a couple of the hits for the Temptations. I mean, that was after they had left Detroit and all. So, I mean, he was rooted in that too, and when I started doing some recording in San Francisco, actually, he came up and did some sessions with us. We're doing like punk music, and here's this Motown guy singing trap.
Now, the EP At Night, it's recent. Got you and back into music, or well, you've always been into music, but what made you want to cut this EP?
Well, I had a bunch of recordings. They were kind of old recordings, and I decided this was before the internet when I recorded this stuff, pretty much. And I thought, it would be nice to send a couple of these songs to friends and be able to, email somebody a tune.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down. I found a studio in Oakland, and they burned some tapes for me. They cook them. So I brought them my old 24-track tapes that were from Zoetrope in San Francisco, Francis Ford's studio on Columbus Avenue over there. That's where we had recorded them. And what you do to get it onto digital, or to be able to send it to somebody, you actually you got to cook the tape so that you can play it back again, and so that it doesn't fall apart when you throw it up on a machine. So we transferred a couple of the tunes, and at the time I thought, well, I got a couple other tunes. Maybe I'll throw down a couple tracks and do some new recordings and see how that goes. So one thing led to another, and now I got like more than a dozen tracks. They're all finished up, actually.
And you have videos too. I saw that go with a lot of the songs.
Right. So maybe I got the wrong idea, but I guess these days I don't think people will listen to a song unless there's a video. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
YouTube is quite popular, so it seems you have to do a video.
Yeah.
So
So I thought I'd had this idea for this song called Cement Shoes. So we shot that video and put it out, and it did pretty good. It got like 40,000 views or something. And so I thought, well, we'll put some of these other tunes out and do some videos. And we were going in to record a tune that I rewrote called Keep Trying. And we were, I invited a bass player and a drummer, and I was playing guitar. And I just called up a video guy. I said, hey, come on down and shoot some video. We're doing like 3 songs, actually, and maybe we can do a video and put it out when we do the tune. So he shot video that day, and I talked to him after. I was like, so maybe we can do like 3 different videos, one for Keep Trying, one for this other tune, one for this. He's like, oh no, I only got enough for 1 song. Like, oh, okay, well, we'll do that. So it was kind of not really well thought out, but we, he edited the thing together, and I'm sorry to say we didn't put much thought into it or anything. We just, we was just laying our tracks and doing our business, and it hit 1 million views and hit 2 million views, and it's up to like it's over 5 million views on this thing. And I'm kind of like, oh, I should have put some thought into doing that thing, maybe. But maybe that's the charm of it, because it's like, oh, this isn't very polished or something. Yeah. So anyway, so now we're doing videos, and we did a video for At Night, and then we did a video for Off My Rocker, and there's another tune on there.
At Night, Cement Shoes, Keep Trying, Off My Rocker.
Yeah.
And I just heard a new one last week.
Yeah. So now this is off what's going to be our second EP called At the Rock and Roll. So that's a tune called Everybody Got Something.
My thoughts, when I listen to it, I'm getting a real Martha Hoople vibe.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, I almost 70s glam rock kind of Martha Hoople. That's what I'm feeling. Somebody
Uh-huh.
else, maybe because I grew up in the 70s too. But
Yeah,
I really liked it because, you know, I like Ian Hunter and his music. And so I definitely am digging it.
yeah, they got some great tunes.
Yeah.
When I was working on that, I actually was particularly influenced from hanging out with David Foster, actually, who's produced all kinds of people and written for lots of folks.
Celine Dion, he didn't he work with her?
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
you name anyone, I think he's worked with.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, he had allowed me to sit in on his session when he was doing the Tubes
Oh,
in Chicago, and Steve Lukather came in to do a guitar track on the Tube song,
oh wow.
and so that was kind of my direct influence as far as the guitar solo goes. I was just looking at the way he handled himself and the way he came in the studio and laid down his track and what he played. It was, it was a little bit impressive.
He's
uh,
good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I just saw him in the fall with Ringo's All-Star Band.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, you're playing with some good people. But obviously you're good too. I like your solo and Off My Rocker.
Oh well, thank you.
I I wrote that down. I said really good. I said really good lead intro.
Oh yeah,
So
cool. Well,
that's
thank.
great how you started off there.
Yeah, well, I wrote that. I wrote the first version of that song sitting on the basement stairs when I lived in Detroit when I was a teenager.
Oh, so really, these songs are all from the time period. Maybe that's why they sound retro, what we would call
Yes.
retro.
Yeah, well, like Off My Rocker, yeah, I mean, I wrote it way back then, and really it's a 1/4/5 blues thing.
Mm.
Uh, but I've got some time signature stuff going on. And one thing, like I said, a lot of these are like older songs, but I pretty much tweaked most of them up. Off My Rocker, I added a bridge and a guitar solo section, and then I changed the time signature because it used when I first played it with a couple different bands way back when it was in I gotta count out, it was in five.
So you kind of
Yeah, it was in
modernized
five.
it more
Yeah,
of a millennial feel. Although it's funny, they call it new classic rock now. All that's old is new again. So you fit right in with the whole trend. I think
yeah,
people are just tired of maybe hip hop or electronic music. They want something that's more human driven, possibly. I don't know. What do you
yeah.
think about this new classic rock trend?
Well, I friends of mine. I don't have any teenage kids, but some friends of mine
Mm-hmm.
who do. The, they play them. Some of the stuff we're recording,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess there's shows where like they have somebody come on and they listen to Led Zeppelin or something, and they're like, "Wow, someone playing the guitar. It's like a whole new concept." I hate to say.
An actual craft rather than sampling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And even one thing when we were going into the studio has changed a little bit from when I was recording, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, you go in and you try and do your track and you want to get through the thing and not make any mistakes. And if you sing a line flat, you got to go back and do it again. If you mess up a guitar part, you got to go back and fix it. So, you got to be pretty much on for your 3 minutes or your 4 minutes. And now it's like, oh, I think I sang the middle of that flat. Oh, no problem. They
Auto
go and
tune.
yeah, you tweak it
Yeah.
up. It's like, oh my God. And I couldn't get used to that, because I'd be like, no, let's just do it again. And I won't mention who, but we had a young lady come in and she laid a track and it was for a friend of mine. I had him bring his daughter in because she wanted to be, she wants to be a star. So, so I told her the line. It's like, it comes in here and you sing this, and it's this line. And so she sang it, and it was nowhere in the vicinity of being in tune or on time or anything. And the engineer says, "Yep, that's fine. We can fix it."
Like Britney Spears.
Well, I've never been in the studio with her, so I
Don't
can't
say.
say.
But it's pretty
I can't
sad,
say.
isn't it, that they can engineer anybody to sound good. But
Yeah,
but
yeah,
live, you can't pull that off when you do a live act.
yeah. Well, then you have your backing tracks, or your Milli Vanilli, or your folks in the Super Bowl or
Oh,
whatever.
that's true. You could do that. Speaking of live, most of your work has been done in the studio. Do you do any live performances? Do you have an actual band that you work with and do live?
I've got a little bit of a pool of folks who I call on. Actually, we did a track that. Oh, well, the one we just finished off, Everybody Got Something. There is some live studio. I mean, there's some live footage in there actually. So we're in a rehearsal studio for a couple of these, but actually in Everybody's Got Something, there's something that looks like a stage in there with lighting. It looks like it's a live show. That's because actually it is a live show.
Actually, a lot of your videos do have what looks like a band, but what I meant is now that you have the EP, would you go to, let's say, the Troubadour, or would you go to a venue? Do you want to take this on the road? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. We're talking with some people, and actually I had an offer to go to Australia.
Oh, wow.
On it's kind of like a 2-week tour. Mm-hmm. But I turned it down. The arrangements weren't that great, and so I'll wait for the next one. I mean, yeah, absolutely, we'd like to go out and play, and our songs also, as far as YouTube goes, are hitting major in South America, and people are just nuts about it in Argentina, and that's where we've gotten like over 4 million views in Argentina, and the rest of South America.
That doesn't surprise me. I lived in Venezuela, and
really?
And they are hungry for rock and roll down there. You would do great in Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, you name it. They're starving for it, and they're extremely enthusiastic when you do play.
Yeah. Well, that's where it's hitting too. I mean, Argentina, it's wild because the top 5 countries are, and this is where there's like, 1 million, 2 million views on these other tunes. And the one with the 5 million views, I mean, I didn't really believe it personally. I was like, and it was Argentina, Indonesia, Ukraine, India, and Turkey. And then the rest of South America is down the list. So there's, Venezuela, Brazil, Uruguay, Peru, everywhere. I was like, what's going on? And I didn't understand. I couldn't understand the Argentina thing. And I was like, I don't know, is this like some person in a car somewhere that keeps hitting play or something? And I talked to a friend of mine then who I'm not that up on the music business really these days, but I talked to a friend of mine. She's she knows who put something out, who went to new band, where this concert's going, where someone's playing here. She's like, oh yeah, Argentina, they're crazy about rock music there. They got these huge festivals there, Metallica and on and on. I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, Argentina.
Oh, you've been there.
No, I haven't been there.
You haven't been there. You just have the hat.
I just got a hat off the internet. That's as close as I've gotten so far.
Oh, funny.
We want to play. We're planning to do something.
You have dabbled in a lot of other things. I see that you have a book that you wrote when you were younger, and I'm presuming you must be an attorney because of ESQ. Am I correct?
Well, I am, and the drummer is an attorney, and then a a guy who's not playing with us. I'm trying to get him to go play with us, who was singing and playing guitar. It was actually also an attorney.
Oh, so that's why it's called ESQ,
Well,
Esquire.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like a joke that we had ESQ, but it's a guy who's a publishing guy in LA came up with the name actually because he's like, you got to have a name for the band. I was like, well, let's do Larry Sager. Okay. He's no, you got to have a name. You got to have a name. Figuring out a name. Oh my God. I remember we'll get the dictionary out. We start with A, we'll go to B. And he's like, how about ESQ? I was like, oh, okay, sure. So some people kind of get it and some people aren't sure. And some are like, is it Esk? Is it, whatever?
I wondered if it was ESQ or just Esquire. That's what I was wondering. So I thought it was somebody must be an attorney.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, or whatever. But some attorneys can play okay music.
Mhm.
A lot try, and a lot of it's
Well, I'm
keep your day
finding
job. Right?
that's it. I'm finding a lot of people maybe went to college, they played in bands, they got a career, and now they're revisiting their music from their youth. Now, especially since COVID, people had time to do that. But
Yeah,
I'm finding that that's kind of the MO of a lot of people.
yeah. Well, this all started was like right when COVID started, and in fact, I remember I went to one place to get them to burn some tapes for me, and it's like, I went to the door, and they're like, leave it at the door, and we'll come get it when you leave. I was like, okay, and yeah, so that's when that's when we were laying all those tracks, and we also had to cancel a few sessions because people were coming down with COVID. So yeah. And going back to the book thing, I when I was an undergrad, I was majoring in English and I was driving a cab at night. And my major was creative writing. And so I was in class in the day. I would drive at night, and then I'd come home like 2, 3 in the morning, write about what happened that night driving around, and then I'd turn it into my class for my assignment.
So it's like Taxi Confessions, kind of like that HBO. Remember that series?
Yeah, yeah. Only it's a little more X-rated and a lot of bad words. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sounds interesting.
So it's a little bit the underbelly.
Do you still do creative writing too?
No, I'm just sticking to the music stuff. So I'm doing rewriting lyrics for these songs, and so everything is pretty much directed to the music now.
Mhm. So a lot of the songs, you said the melodies, the music was written a while ago, but you're revamping the lyrics right now to present day.
Yeah, like Off My Rocker, I took that. I kept the only thing that's the same in Off My Rocker is I didn't really like the first 3 lines in the song necessarily, but they were the original lines. So I was like, as an homage to the original writer, I kept those in. And then the rest I totally changed. And it was about being attracted to a girl and living in San Francisco. That's what the song is. And now it's a different deal. And then yeah, so I've done that with a couple others of adding backgrounds, adding lyrics, changing stuff. At Night, which you'd mentioned before, was originally a punk song, and it was real fast. It was kind of like I don't know, like a Ramones thing, or just a punky tune. And
Yeah.
so I slowed it down, and then I had this, idea. What if I put some like background vocals? And I was thinking like the Black Crowes do, like in a couple of their tunes.
I love that. That gives it the full sound. Leonard Skinner used to have backup girls, a lot of the bands, and I really love that. I hope you keep doing that.
Well,
with
that's
your
my
songs.
and yeah, and that's what we have on these tunes. And we got a couple like of tunes that are finished up, and they're pretty. They're harder rock stuff and less poppy than some of the stuff we got out now. So there's a little bit of a transition that goes on. But I've got these singers, singing on there, and I'm always a little reticent about it because I want them to. I'm looking for singers who have that R&B thing, and I'm like, well, that's what I want in here. But are you okay? Do you like rock music? Is that okay with you?
Mhm. Well, look at Tedeschi Trucks. A lot of your Southern rock bands, they have the girls, and keep doing it. Are you going to be releasing a single at a time or an EP coming up?
Yeah, we're releasing like a single at a time. At the same time, we're putting out an old-fashioned CD just to have it out and more as a little thing that you can hold on
So
to.
a physical copy. You'll be burning physical copies?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Just to give it out to some people, and I'll ask, do you have a CD player? And people are, yeah, there's one in my car, or they're like, what's that?
A lot of us still use CD players and turntables, I have to say.
Yeah, I have a CD in my car, it turns out, just by chance. So we're getting the EP printed out. So we're going to be putting out another single, so to speak, another video that we're just finishing up called At the Rock and Roll. And we'll be putting that out. And at the same time around then putting out the CD just for kind of the hell of it.
So maybe by summertime?
What? Oh, the second tune?
Yeah.
Now we're going to put that out in by April.
Oh, okay. So like every couple months or so.
We're shooting now. We were going to do like every month, and the things are getting so many hits. We're like, well, we'll let this kind of run its course. But now I want to quicken up the pace. So we're going to do like every 4 or 5 weeks a new tune. That's the plan. Is
Sylvia Massey the producer on these new tunes?
Well, she's mixing actually.
Okay.
So I didn't come to Sylvia until later in the process. So I'd finished all these tunes, laying all the tracks, and like you mentioned, Off My Rocker, you probably wouldn't know from it, but there's like 5 guitar tracks on that thing.
Wow. A lot of layers, huh?
Yeah. I got another tune that's got like 6 guitars on there. And part of the reason is that we would go in and record, and I wasn't quite happy with the guitar sound, and wasn't quite happy with the way it's like popping out on the recording, essentially. And so I'm not an engineer. I'm just a musician. I know it sounds good. I don't know how to get that final product necessarily, but I know, how to lay down what I want to hear. So my solution's like, well, I'll put another guitar track on. So I go in, I put my Strat on it, but then I got my Les Paul. I put a Les Paul track. I got 12-string guitar. I throw that on there. I got my Ibanez. I put that on there, and this one tune, I got all these guitar tracks. I'm like, it's too busy and it's not crisp, and the drummer's like, the drums aren't popping, and so I randomly sent out a email to Sylvia. And I said, I got this tune. We're having trouble mixing it. Can't quite get it to sound right. Would you be interested to mix it? Because if she wanted to produce, I would bring her in as a producer. But but it was too late in the game. So I sent them the track and sent back a note. She's like, "Yeah, we'll kill it." So I sent them this tune, and she fixed everything. The drums kicking, the guitars were crisp, and there was a lot of guitar. There was like kind of dueling guitar solo stuff going on. She like picked through that and just made it pop. And we haven't put that out yet, but then, I was so happy with it. And I said, well, I got a couple other tunes. Could you take a listen to those? Would you be interested at all?
Mhm.
And she said, sure, send them out, send them over and we'll check them out. And I sent a couple of more over and she did those. And then I said, well, I got another 5 here too. So she's done 16 tunes now.
Wow.
And then she sang on one a couple months ago too. She called up. It's like, this is your best song of all of these. I was like, really? Because to me, it was kind of like, I was like hesitant even to send it to her because I thought, I don't know, she's going to hear this and she's not going to work with me anymore. So she goes, you mind if I put some vocals on here? I said, absolutely, do whatever you want. And so we're going to put that one out after we put out At the Rock and Roll, which is
that one rock music too? The one that she really liked?
Yeah, it's rock. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. I always say, leave the mixing to the experts. They know what they're doing. you know.
Well,
your music sounds great, and that's what more people need to do is just leave it to the experts.
Yeah, she made it pop. She is on the track that I'm on. I mean, I know what I want to hear, and she gets what she puts out. It's like boom. I don't know. We're just on the same wavelength.
Mm-hmm.
And even back 15 and 20 years ago, when I was putting tracks down at Zoetrope, we'd put the tracks down. I had an engineer and we mix it, and it just wasn't right. And I was running around to different studios to different people.
I want to thank you for coming to Rock at Night podcast and speaking with me, because I've been listening to your music for some time, and now I have the person in front of me who can answer a lot of the questions I've been wondering, especially ESQ, the name.
And I see your puppy dog in there too.
Yeah, every time I do these interviews, I think, please don't bark. And I have my cat running around too. I'm like hitting them. Here is At Night by ESQ.
You're listening to Rock at Night.
The introductory song, Get On Down, is from blues artist Billy Bass Alford. Look for his music at ReverbNation.com.